Alhamdulillah, the fadl, the karam, the grace of Allah Ta'ala. We just passed through the Mubarak month of Ramadan. And one challenge that is staring each of us in the face is that how do we remain steadfast? On Ramadan we were on a spiritual high. Allah Ta'ala had created it such, made it such, the shayateen were locked up or chained up, making it much more easier for us. An environment of Taraweeh and Tilawat of Quran and Majid, etc. And do we relapse now? Do we go back to our old ways? So Hazrat Qari Muhammad mentioned on one occasion that when we speak of this nisbat with Allah Ta'ala, which inshallah to some degree we have developed now through the month of Ramadan and Mubarak, this connection with Allah Ta'ala, and quoting a very senior alim, he says, what is meant when we say nisbat and connection with Allah Ta'ala? So two signs that a person has developed connection and nisbat with Allah Ta'ala is kathratul dhikr, abundance of dhikrullah, and dawam ta'at. The person is constantly in the obedience of Allah Ta'ala. These are two signs that will tell you that you yourself will each gauge ourselves whether we've developed some sort of nisbat and connection with Allah Ta'ala. If dhikrullah is in our life, and not just dhikrullah but kathratul dhikr, all the time a person's tongue is moving, his heart is in communion with Allah Ta'ala. And then dawam ta'at, a person is all the time in the obedience of Allah Ta'ala. And as I mentioned, but obviously being insan, awwalu nasin, first of mankind, Adam alayhi salatu wassalam, was the first to forget. So likewise his dhurriya, his progeny, all of us until the day of Qiyamah, we will also slip, we will also fall. But Allah Ta'ala has given us that door, that means by which we can, I'll give an example, if a person is writing, then he has an eraser or he has Tipex. If he has to then he will erase it, he will take it out. A person is busy on his computer. As one of his dua which he would make, that Ya Allah, press the delete button on our sins. Press the delete, so there's some form of going backtracking if a person had made a mistake, press the delete button, etc. There are detergents, if a person's clothing becomes soiled, becomes dirty, then we use all types of bleachers, etc., detergents to wipe out that dirt and that crime which has come onto the clothing. So likewise, a person will slip, he will fall. The Qari mentioned that when we look at insan, on the one hand you have Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, the prophets, the messengers of Allah Ta'ala, they are ma'asum. They do not commit any sin. But besides them, when it comes to ordinary mortals like us, then we have two categories. One is that category of people who are mahfuz. Mahfuz, they are divinely protected, not ma'asum, not that they cannot commit sins. They can commit sins, but Allah Ta'ala divinely protects them. So regarding that, he quotes as a Shawwaal, who was a very, very high-ranking Khalifah of Nana Ashraf Ali Thanwi. So this person is saying regarding his Shaykh Nana Ashraf Ali Thanwi, he says, definitely I have seen in my Shaykh Nana Ashraf Ali Thanwi, he was definitely mahfuz. Allah Ta'ala divinely protected him from sin. In other words, you'd never ever find him inadvertently also slipping and doing something wrong. And then Hazrat Shah Wasiullah Khalifa, who was still alive, Khamru Zaman Sabilah Habadi, well into his 90s. He says that I can admit to the same thing about Shah Wasiullah. Shah Wasiullah is saying that about Nana Ashraf Ali Thanwi, that he is mahfuz, divinely protected, but I can tell you the same thing about him. He himself also is divinely protected. In other words, their life is just dawam ta'at, all the time obedience of Allah Ta'ala. But how do we get that strength? Easy to say that we need to be all the time in the obedience of Allah Ta'ala. So that energy and that fuel is the zikr of Allah Ta'ala. Kathratul zikr. This gives a person that drive, it gives that person that courage. Like that, in our minds, we all understand right from wrong. I have to mention a few examples, music, or taking intoxicants, or anything, looking at something haram. Everyone's mind understands this is wrong. But the person just doesn't have the courage to stay away from it. So it's not a matter of him not understanding right, or confusing right from wrong. He understands clearly this is right, this is wrong, this is permissible, this is impermissible. But he still falls into those weaknesses because he doesn't have that inner fuel, that inner energy, which is supposed to have been generated through the dhikr of Allah Ta'ala. So very important, the kathrat of dhikr throughout our day, we need to see that we stipulate a time, in fact even stipulate a place. Like how we have our meals at a certain time, at a certain place, like that, stipulate a certain time and a certain place, then it will get done every day. And otherwise, 1 day, 2 days it will happen, and we'll skip few days, and it will happen again. It will be very on and off. But consistency is key. If you want to build this connection with Allah Ta'ala, just start with a small number also, and stipulate the place also, whether it is at home or very easy after Salah, maybe after Fajr Salah, for example. We're already in a state of wudu, we're already in the masjid, we're already facing the qibla, etc. A few small numbers for a start, but with consistency. Come what may, that dhikrullah will get done. This will bring within us that spiritual fuel and energy to refrain and to stay away from the disobedience of Allah Ta'ala.